Okay, we're gonna do operations with rational expressions. Usually for y'all, multiplication and division are the easiest, so I'm gonna start with that. When I multiply this rational expression, I'm gonna try to simplify first. A lot of y'all will do that too. So 4 and 2 is gonna simplify to 2 and 1. And then I just multiply numerators times numerators and denominators times denominators. I don't have to do that. If I wouldn't have simplified first, I could simplify later. Which is easy with numbers, but it's a lot harder when you're dealing with rational expressions with variables. So if I have something like this, I don't know why I put that in parentheses. I could multiply it out first and then try to simplify, but that's gonna make my life really sad, and I like my life being happy. So I wanna factor first. I'm gonna put the denominator in parentheses even though I don't need it. The reason I put it in parentheses is that it makes it more obvious to me that I'm gonna cancel these. So now my denominator is totally gone. So I'm just gonna multiply my numerators. I don't have a denominator, but I do still have restrictions anytime I'm dealing with rational expressions. So what makes my denominator equal to 0? Which are these two. So that's my final answer on this guy. Division is like multiplication in reverse. And we know that, so this shouldn't be hard for me. So if I have something like I know my examples are really, really simple, but I'll get to more complicated stuff, I promise. So I heard a term last year that I like to use, which is copy, change, flip. So copy, the first one stays the same. Change, division becomes multiplication. Flip, the second one gets flipped. So I'm gonna copy, change, flip. I'm gonna factor. You're thinking this is the exact same example I just did, which you're right. So it should be easy. Cancel, multiply it out. Whatever makes my denominator equal to 0. But I look back to the beginning. This was originally a denominator. So it's also whatever makes this equal to 0. So all of this is an answer. So don't forget that this was originally a denominator, which means whatever makes it 0 cannot be a solution. So sometimes we'll see something where it's written like this. We need to know that this means division. So copy, change, flip still applies. First one, copy. Change division to multiplication and flip. I'm gonna factor them out. Cancel what I can, and then multiply. So I'm going to expand this back out. I'm going to expand this. Whatever makes my denominator equal to 0 is a restriction. So -2, -2, -1. And remember that this was originally a denominator right here. So also that, which is -1. I already have that, so I'm not going to write it twice. So that's what we're doing today. We're simplifying. Multiplication and division is pretty easy. Adding and subtracting is a little bit tougher. Why? Because I have to have a common denominator. I have to have a common denominator. The only thing I can do to an expression is multiply it by a variation of 1. What I always see people try to do is add 1 to this and add 1 to this. That's not multiplying by a variation of 1. You cannot do that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to multiply this by x plus 1, which means I'm going to multiply this by x plus 1. I'm going to multiply this by x plus 2, which means I'm going to multiply this by x plus 2. So that gives me I'm going to leave this in factored form for right now, just in case at the end I can cancel something out. Combine like terms. I can't factor this, which means I'm not going to be able to cancel anything on the denominator, which means my denominator is going to remain the same, which means I'm going to expand it. My denominator still cannot equal 0, so part of my solution is what makes this equal to 0, what makes this equal to 0. So this is my whole solution. Subtraction is the same thing. Only difference with subtraction is, like always, you need to make sure that you distribute the subtraction. So I'm going to multiply this by x minus 1. I'm going to multiply this by x minus 1. I'm going to multiply this by x plus 1. I'm going to multiply this by x plus 1. I'm going to leave this factored for right now. Now, why did I put that in parentheses? I put that in parentheses so that I remember to subtract everything in here. X squared minus x squared is nothing. Negative x minus 2x is negative 3x. And nothing minus 1 is negative 1. I can't factor this out. I could just factor out a negative sign. I don't have a 3x plus 1 here, so I'm just going to distribute this. Whatever makes my denominator equal to 0 is a restriction, so 1 and negative 1, and that's my answer. So that's what we're trying to do today. Adding, subtracting, and multiplying and dividing rational expressions.